it's Heather. Welcome to Hearthroot Farm. A few months ago, we bought 9.5 acres in Virginia, Zone 7A, to build a sustainable silvopasture permaculture focused homestead. So we bought this property to develop a homestead to become more self-sufficient and work on building something that will not only benefit our family, but will also be a benefit to the community. And definitely one big part of that for me is the garden. So I wanted to show you the garden, but it's winter now. So this is the garden map. And I just wanted to walk you guys through it. So the top section is my neighbor's portion. So that's one of the unique parts of this property is that it already has a built-in fenced-in garden with a ton of existing perennials that is shared with the neighbors. So she has her side and I have my side, and we'll see along the lines how that develops in terms of sharing and planning together, and we'll see. But the neighbor's portion is at the top, and then my portion is at the bottom. And starting right under the property line at the top section is 4 raised beds of varying sizes. One with a large cattle panel arch already set up, which I'm really excited about. And then there's a small in-ground bed next to one of the existing raised beds that looked like they had planted potatoes previously. And then going down the line, there's a little small native flower garden, and then the greenhouse. The greenhouse needs a lot of work. We had hoped to get to it this fall, but we just did not. And then going down, that sort of orchard area where there's a couple of really sad apple trees, a pear tree, a couple of peach trees, a fig. And then going towards the left, towards that middle section, there's blackberry and raspberry rows, 2 rows with some really well-established blackberries with thorns, but taste really good. And they actually were producing all the way up to basically Thanksgiving. And then that middle area, the 5 rows, that's actually trellising for grapes. So there's, I don't know, about 10 or so, maybe 12 grape vines already they planted there. And then 1 row, the trellis that has no grapes planted. So I've mulched it for planting annuals in the spring. And then moving towards that bottom corner, that's where all of the blueberries were started. So there's several existing large or varying sizes of blueberry bushes already planted, and then 1 red currant. And then I went back in and planted some things, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So for the blueberry area, the first thing that I had to do, because I had things I needed and wanted to plant in there, is to figure out where I could plant. And because the electrical box for both our property and then our neighbor's property is sort of in the middle, right near the property line, I needed to figure out exactly where it runs underground so that I don't dig there. And what I found is that someone did dig there, because there's a couple of the blueberry bushes that are right on top of where this electrical line has run. But I've since marked it off so that I won't plan to plant anything too close. I did find room to plant 2 honeyberry bushes right alongside that line next to some of the existing blueberry bushes. I also went through and planted the 6 blueberry plants that I brought, which are a combination. There's 6 different varieties, 2 early, 2 mid, and 2 late season varieties. I will be completely honest, I didn't realize how many blueberry bushes were already here when I went out and bought 6 more, but we do love blueberries, so we will deal with the consequences of my overbuying in the future. And then the other thing I did, and this is in the bottommost corner, where I added the two blueberry bushes to what was already there. And then I also added 2 elderberries. So along with that, once I was adding plants, I was also really getting started with the permaculture approach with the sheet mulch. So I started with layers of cardboard. Then I went over it with a leaf litter, primarily leaf litter. And then I did some top dressing of rabbit manure and wood chips. And the bed in the bottommost corner also got some wine cap mushroom spawn mixed in, so that hopefully that's the shadiest corner of the garden. So I'm hoping that that does well with the mushrooms. So as far as the future of this area, I have actually many propagations started, but one of the things I'm doing is I'm adding a second red currant. I also have additional elderberry and mulberry plants that I would like to plant on the left-hand side. And then through in the main section, the 2 large blueberry rows, both of those will get strawberries planted alongside the south edge. And I have 50 starts of 2 different varieties of strawberries. One is a June bearing and one is an ever bearing. So I expect that that area will become sort of a chaotic mess of strawberries in the future, which I'm excited about. So at this point, the second wood chip pile went from looking like this to looking like this. And I was pretty over it, but I still had a lot to go. So I got started with the grapes. Fortunately, this area was a lot more straightforward. I didn't have to figure out where to plant anything. I just needed to put the new mulching system in place for what was there. So that was starting with a layer of cardboard, adding the leaf litter, the rabbit manure. At this point, I started to add in some horse manure that I was collecting from another pasture on the property. And we were also shredding a lot of the cardboard that was coming off of out of the house from the moving boxes and wood chips. This area also got drip irrigation first. And so that was a big help for keeping this area from completely frying during the drought that we arrived in. And we are still in, actually. So for the future in this area, we are again just really caring for what's already there. We need to prune the grapes, learn how to prune the grapes, and get them secured to the existing trellis system. I added echinacea to the end of one of the rows. I planted garlic bulbs around all of the existing grapevines, and the empty row will be used for annual plants in the spring. Here's a before view of the grape area. You can see it was mostly filled with grass. There was small sections for each plant that were mulched, but for the most part, it was really like one individual plant and then a lot of grass. So when I took over, I started to consolidate the rows. I finished this area wondering if I really even like grapes at all. The next area was the blackberry and raspberry area, which somehow looked both neglected and wild and out of control all at the same time. This area got the same backbreaking treatment as most of the other areas, meaning I loaded it up with cardboard, then some level of leaf litter, manure, rabbit manure, horse manure, and wood chips. Next, we're going to talk about the fruit trees. Already planted are 2 apple trees, which are sad looking, 2 varieties of figs, pear tree with 5 varieties, and 2 peach trees. This area got the same treatment as the rest, with cardboard, leaf litter, rabbit manure, and more wood chips. I was as sick of it as you are probably hearing about it. But I also added a few plants. I added comfrey and ground cherry, which is an annual, but I'm hoping will reseed itself, and also lemon balm. I also planted garlic around most of the perennials and added some tulip bulbs to one of the edges that you can see from the house. I also intend to plant artichokes and asparagus in this area. The next thing to talk about is the greenhouse, which is really to say it's a project in the making. It needs a lot of work. There's a small flower garden, and then we have the raised beds. There's 4 in total. They're all different kinds. It's the one in the middle, which has the cattle panel arch above it. It's just really cool. And then this one has asparagus in it right now. This is the neighbor's version of the cattle panel. She had planted cucumbers on the inside, and it just grew in so thick over the top and around. The biggest cucumbers I've ever seen came out of this all summer long, and it was pretty neglected. So when it was all said and done, I had turned all the individually planted and mulched plants into rows as much as possible, and I was really, really tired. This area in between the grapes and the raised beds is where I'll eventually put new beds or an in-ground bed. Okay, that's it for my garden tour. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'd love to hear any questions you might have. See you next time.